Tonight, we are celebrating what I think many of us can call a magnificent U-turn with our new governor, Guy Hunt. Will you come on up here, Governor?
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much, Senator Cabanis, Chairman Falmer, ladies and gentlemen. It's really a pleasure to be with you this evening. As you can well imagine, there's been a tremendous change in my life and the life of my family within the last few months. For 4 years, I lived in Montgomery in the Seasons apartment off South Boulevard and passed by the governor's mansion on South Perry Street every morning, and they never would open the gate for me. But you know, every time now I come down South Perry Street, they open the gate and welcome me in, and it's a good feeling. Of course, you know you have to be careful because it's very difficult sometimes to get respect. I remember that when I was elected probate judge, I was pretty young at the time. I was 31 years old. And, you know, the prestige, the honor of being the youngest probate judge in Alabama sort of got to me one day. And around the Coleman County Courthouse, everyone was calling me judge, and I'd go home, you know, and Helen didn't show the same kind of respect. And I said, listen, you're still just the same old guy to me. But I can't say that, Senator Cabanis, about Senator Dixon, because the other evening at the mansion, I called on Senator Dixon to express Lord, and now I noticed one of my other floor leaders, Senator Butch Ellis here from Butch, will you stand up? That kind of respect out of you Democrats, just out of the Republicans. But I would to just sort of reminisce just a little, and I guess what started me to thinking about it was the fact that so many of the people who have become involved in the administration have been not only people who became involved in politics in the last few years, but stretches back over a long period of time to those who have labored long and hard in the vineyards of the Republican Party. And at those times when it was very, I don't say it was difficult to be a Republican, but it just wasn't as popular as it is today to be a Republican. I remember the first race I ran in Coleman County. There were 6 of us running, and 3 of us always went together for safety. And so it has changed just a little over the years. But I began to think why that I became involved in the political activities. I suppose that you, tonight, as you reminisce back over your life, and I see many of you who have been involved a long time, you began to think, well, why did I get involved? And I remember as a young man just returning from the United States Army and with a young wife and 2 young children, and I began to look at my country and the direction the country was going and listen at the people who were expressing their beliefs and various things, and some of those beliefs did not coincide with mine. Because, you know, here in the South, we've always believed in our country, and believed in patriotism. We believed in the flag. We didn't ever appreciate people who were willing to spit upon the American flag or to trample it under their feet. And we don't believe in people today who want to spit upon our president and trample him because we feel like he's a great leader of a great nation. But as I began to reminisce and began to think as to why I did get involved at that particular time, I remember it was 1960, and I went to some of the local leaders and I says, you know, we need to organize this party to have a 2-party system. We need the competition of a 2. because I told them that if Senator Goldwater can win in Arizona with 2 Democrats registered to every 1 Republican, that we should be able to do it in Alabama. And I began to talk to people, and I remember someone told me, said, well, what we need is candidates. And I said, well, don't look at me, because being a pastor of churches, I know I can never be a candidate, but I'll help you to build the party. Well, I made a mistake. To tell many young Americans how great it is to become involved and to learn firsthand about the political process in this country. Be surprised how much more you learn when you're involved knocking on doors in the various parts of the cities and in the rural areas of our state than you can learn out of a textbook. And so that experience is very important. But in 1962, I heard of another young fellow who was interested in changing the party by the name of John Green. A whole lot better than I can a Republican. You better send me the Democrat down. And it was a distinct pleasure in November of 1986 to walk into the governor's mansion, shake hands with a friend of mine by the name of George Wallace, and replace him as governor of this great state of Alabama. And to have that man who, because of his strong popularity, defeated me at my first race out, to go on the news and to tell them that Guy Hunt is a compassionate and able person and he'll make Alabama a great governor. And I thought that was certainly very gracious on his part for him to give us this opportunity to have the kind of transition we've had into this new government in Alabama. And for that, to Governor Wallace, I'll always say that I'm certainly grateful for that opportunity. But you know, as we've come along the years, and as I've remembered all of that, and as we had our rendezvous with history on November the 4th, and as I was standing there surrounded by all of you good people, many of you were not able to be there because you were still counting the votes back home. But I remember when CBS said about 6:30 that Guy Hunt has won the election in Alabama, and I don't believe there had been but about 1 box that had come in then. I thought how much better it was. Now, 8 years before then, when I had run for governor and sat in a motel room in Coleman, and when the networks came on and said Fob James had won, it aggravated the life out of me. But it's a sight what 8 years difference can be. And I want to tell you, in case you don't know it, it's a whole lot better to win than it is to lose. But I would be remiss if I did not remember those of you who have made this possible by continually toiling in the vineyards, by those of you who stay, and to thank you from the bottom of my heart for every sacrifice you ever made, for every door you ever knocked on, for every phone call you ever made, because you're the one that brought this rendezvous with history. Because Guy Hunt and Guy Hunt alone, without your help and without God's blessings, would not have been able to stand on that stage on November the 4th as the first Republican governor elected in 112 years. And so each of you need to take a bow for all that you've done. But as we talk about that time in history and that portion of history on November the 4th, I would remind you that that is the beginning of something that can be the greatest thing that ever happened in your life, the life of your children, the life of your grandchildren, or in the history of the state of Alabama. And that is because of this opportunity that Senator Cabanis and Chairman Fulmer have mentioned to us, and having an opportunity to govern Alabama and to move Alabama along. Because, you know, as I stood here in Birmingham just a few short weeks ago and stood before the Chamber of Commerce and told them that, you know, even though that I recognized that Birmingham had been known in the past as a magic city, and that there might have been a time in its history that it had lost its glitter, but because of the kind of leadership we have in the Jefferson metropolitan area, that Birmingham and Jefferson metropolitan area could be the marvel of the nation. And when I said that, I looked out and they had shocked look upon their face, because they had not evidently in many years had someone come into Birmingham and tell them that we need you to help us to lead this state out of the dark ages and out of the bottom 5 economically into the top 5 in the nation. And I'm glad that I can return to Birmingham and to see those of you from all over the state and again call for the leadership and the business community of this state to lead Alabama, and we're going and have formed the kind of partnership that's going to move us forward, and that will go down in history as the greatest thing that ever happened in this great state. Isn't it nice to be a part of the history-making process that says to our young children, we love you, but we love you enough to give you the best leadership that we are capable of giving you in this state? Isn't it wonderful to be a part of history that tells our young men and women, that will show them in years to come that we're serious when we say that we want the kind of Alabama so that you will not have to leave Alabama to find good paying jobs in other states? Isn't it wonderful to be a part and to be making history and be a part of history that says to our young men and women who have left Alabama that we want you to come home because opportunity is going to live again in Alabama? And isn't it wonderful to be a part of that history that tells people in the corporate boardrooms of this country and around the world that, yes, Alabama has a pro-business and pro-jobs atmosphere. And as I broke ground for a plant over in Lynette recently, turned to those people, the Germans who were building the plant, and told Nicholas of this state, as I did today when Bob McKee brought into my office a Russian who had left Soviet Russia, to tell me that there's no one left in Russia who believes really in communist socialism, that the people who believe in it the most are the professors in some of our colleges of the U.S. And you know, as we began to think of the failed policies that there are in this world of ours, we recognize that some of those failed policies are the things that have kept Alabama at the bottom of the heap all these years. And I've always been proud to be an Alabamian, because I remember when I served my time in the United States Army, served with a bunch of Yankees from up the East Coast, and over there in Fort Jackson, South Carolina, and I remember that they would say, well, there goes old Alabama, and I weighed 150 pounds soaking wet at that time, and I would just stick my chest out with all that pride. But I'm glad to be a part of that history, as you are, with being governor of this state the next 8 years. Somebody said 4, I don't know who said that, but and to see an Alabama that we can be proud of because we are first in the nation, because we're headed to the top. We know we're going to be there someday because we're starting in motion everything that's necessary to get there today. For not only have we forged partnership with the business community to raise funds for our management audit teams that are going into the departments of state government, but we have forged partnerships with many of the fine Democrats of this state who believe, as you and I, that it's time for Alabama to untie the shackles of the past and to move into a new day, and a day of cooperation, and a day to put the old politics and the old way behind, and to remember that we need to watch after the money we spend, which is state money, much more than we do our own money. And when we have brought that philosophy to state government, the kind of change that it's going to be. So I have forged that partnership with the Democrat, many of the Democrats in the House and the Senate, as Senator Ellis here. As last week, we know that we have 21 Republicans in the family, and they have access to me, and I guarantee them to have access. But also, it was a great feeling to me
Your other video looks good. Shooting into that light. Yeah, got a little light leaking in.
You're in trouble now, ain't you? They did it, didn't they? I ain't called her
They're all in line. Gates are open. They're off in the first race of the Birmingham Turf Club. And Bill Shoemaker sends Burt Street right to the front end. Crystal Dust and Barracita are out fast from the outside. Then comes Retrogress and Robbins Rob along the rail. Queen Alexandra is next in between horses. Then comes Pasepsi. They're well bunched. It's a gap of about 6 lengths back along the rail to Tempered Romance. Lemmy Love is next on the outside. Then comes Distant Doll, and the early trailer is Nutanya. The first four went to 23-1, and they're racing down the backstretch. It's Burt's Dream coasting along on the front end, in front by 2, and Retrogress races second by 2.5. To the outside, Queen Alexandra, the favorite, is 4 lengths off the lead. Robbins Rob is next along the rail. It's a gap of about 5 lengths further back to Lemmy Love. From between horses, Pasepsi is next. Then comes Distant Dull along the rail. Crystal Dust. Nutanya is gaining ground on the outside. The trailers are Tempered Romance and Barracita. The half 46-2, they're moving around the far turn and Retrogress. And Julio Espinosa taking the lead from Burt's Dream. Queen Alexandra is looming boldly, only 2 lengths off the lead at the top of the stretch. Retrogress between horses and Queen Alexandra. Burt's Dream is there on the rail as 3 of them get up on the 8th roll. And Queen Alexandra taking the lead. Queen Alexandra will win the first race of the Birmingham Turf Club as Nutanya rallies late for second. It's Queen Alexandra in front.
Oh no! Look at that! I have written down.
And number 11 is the Mobile Farms Barracita, trained by Robert Milton with jockey Thomas Fackler. Post time is 7 minutes away at 6:35.